cardiorespiratory system is fully taken over, a new level of steady state oxygen consumption is achieved. Remember, the energy substrate, phosphagen, anaerobic glycolysis, and then the oxidative. Okay, anaerobic threshold is reached when the exercise intensity increases above steady state aerobic metabolism and anaerobic production of ATP occurs. When the anaerobic threshold is crossed, exercise can only be sustained for a few minutes before hyperventilation begins to occur, okay? And so forth.
When they say hyperventilation there, they don't mean what we would think hyperventilation is.
No,
they
not-
just mean heavier breathing.
Yeah, not a hysterical person. No, meaning hyperventilation. What happens is you're taking in more air to try to derive more oxygen from it. But the faster you do it, the less efficient it becomes. Okay. Yeah, you see some of these world-class athletes, 100-meter dash. Yeah, so what? They're done. They could talk to you in a matter of seconds. End of the Boston Marathon or any of the marathons, the people that are well conditioned, they're responding to questions normally. You know, it depends on where you're at. It says, here we go. I knew this was going to come out somewhere. This is in your book as well. Those without the book, though, take a picture. Okay, there are two distinct changes in breathing patterns during incremental exercise. The first ventilatory threshold and the second. VT1 occurs as soon as the blood lactate begins to accumulate and the body needs to rid itself of excess carbon dioxide through increased respiration. It is the first point at which it becomes noticeably more difficult to speak. Ta-da, right here. Okay, VT2 occurs as blood lactate, lactic acid in the blood rapidly increases with the intensity and represents increased hyperventilation past the need to rid the body of excess CO2. Okay, also known as the lactate threshold and respiratory compensation threshold. Speaking is definitely not comfortable at this intensity. It's going to become ragged here though first. I said, the old talk test, if you get a bad response, how you doing, Todd?
I'm doing great.
Okay, he's here. Then if he's like barely manageable to speak, he's either here or here. Very easy. Okay. VT1 and VT2 are used to develop training programs for both serious athletes and beginners. Okay? If you have a beginner that's deconditioned, do you want to throw him into VT2? You'll probably lose him as a client in hyperspeed. Okay? You're not doing him a service though if you're not working him either. But of course, this is kind of restating the obvious. Serious athletes perform approximately 70-80% of their training intensities below VT1. Okay, less than 10% between VT1 and VT2 and 10 to 20% above. For beginners, VT1 may serve as the appropriate upper limit. If you get anything from this, yes. Okay, you want to get people fit, but you're not here to kill them at least right away. Sometimes I have training a lady right now. She likes to feel DOMS. Anybody heard of DOMS? DOMS is another term you'll come across in reading, delayed onset muscle soreness. If she has DOMS, I'll get an email. Thanks, Zach. In fact, I just got one. Let me pull out this handy dandy thing.
That little magical device in your hand.
Yes.
I have heard about it. It's like extreme muscle soreness after more than 24 or 48 hours after the exercise, right? So
Delayed onset, yes. Okay,
It's always worse the second.
here's the lady I've been training.
Yeah, it sucks.
This is. I take this as a compliment. Zach, I have been thinking about you today every time I move. Thanks for the good workout. Okay, and then she goes on, she can't train with me tonight and so forth, but there, I like getting stuff like that. That's a happy client if they say it in a, you know, in a happy manner, okay? Again, Steve, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Nathan.
Is it because of the increase of lactate in your muscles, or is it because of the microtears?
Both, good question, but mostly DOMS would be from the lactic acid pooling. So anybody, like I said, I'm an NFL fan, love it. Let's take the gunners. I don't even know what a gunner is. Okay, on a kickoff, the team that's kicking usually has 2 or 3 really fast guys. As soon as the ball's kicked, they're racing down the field, trying to get the guy who maybe caught the ball. Those are gunners, okay? Wide receivers, on the other hand, are the guys that go out for the long passes. They usually have the dreadlocks and that kind of thing. Sure as you're watching NFL, if the cameraman's good, he'll see a good play by a gunner or a good play by a wide receiver. What do they do immediately when they hit the sideline? They get on a stationary bike to prevent what Nathan just said, to get the lactic acid out through light intensity.
Respiration.
Yeah. So,
So they sprint like mad as opposed to just sitting. They
yeah,
keep moving.
and if, instead of just sitting there, especially
Otherwise
if it's
it'll
cold,
pool.
they want to keep moving. They'll get on a stationary bike and pedal it like they stole it for a while, and then they'll go to slow. And then the trainer will put the tarp over them, the jacket and so forth. Yeah. They don't do that to look cool. They do it so they can survive a game and not get the lactic acid. They're gonna get it anyway. But again, case in point, okay? But then you'll start, when you start training people again, I wanted to share that with you. I got that today. Well, actually, when we're starting, I saw it came in. But that's a happy client. Now, Steve and I and Lisa, we train people free, people that come into the gym. That's what we're doing. We're there to interact with people. But again, that lady works very, very hard. And again, she wanted to be beat up, and so I accommodated her. doing a series of tear-down sets, which I'll show you in a bit, and so forth. But that's a happy camper there. She's sore, but she's happy from what? Delayed onset muscle soreness.
Doesn't increasing your water intake help that?
It can, but not necessarily. Usually movement is what will flush lactic acid better. But again, it doesn't have to be something to be feared, especially if you're training somebody. Think about this. If you've trained somebody that's never done any physical work, they could construe lactic acid as an injury, when you and I both know that's not the case. So you gotta be a good salesperson too, okay? Had a young lady doing a circuit training class, okay? She was trying to tell a doctor that she injured herself with a 10-pound chest press, okay? The doctor called, and I knew the doctor. I said, so you're telling me that person would be crushed by a gallon of milk if they were laying down? Oh, the doctor said, I feel kind of crazy. Yeah, okay, yeah. Now, that person had never done any physical work in their life, so they're construing a little bit of lactic acid with a muscle tear. Again, you gotta be a good salesman. I think all of us in here know, hell no, that's what we want.
Yeah, that's that beautiful hurt the next
Yeah.
day.
You know what, if I'm talking to a student and I did a bunch of dips and my elbow hurts, it's like, yeah, I lit up my tries last night, good for me, you know? So again, be a good salesman though. Lactic acid can be a good indicator that you got into some deep muscle tissue, created micro trauma to enhance the repair to get stronger. That's a good thing, okay? I'm not suggesting we go out and injure people. That's not the intention, obviously. But good questions. Case in point. Remember, VT1 may serve as the appropriate upper limit for a beginner or a deconditioned person. Okay? Chronic training adaptations to exercise. The SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demands. Okay? Do we have SAID? I think I have SAID here. Oh, look at this. you might see said again, so let's make sure everybody sees it en masse here.
That's all stuff you want.
This is all good things.
That's your body adapting, right?
I'm gonna get back, I'm sorry, let me, everybody get one. Like I said, you're already getting burned out with acronyms, aren't you? Are you getting burned out with acronyms? Okay, don't let them beat you down. There you go. So, let's have a look at this. Said, a good thing. I'm gonna have a seat here. Okay. Improve cardiac output, increase stroke volume, and lower heart rate. That's always a good thing. Okay, chronic adaptations to exercise, increase in respiratory capacity. Yeah. Increase in maximal oxygen consumption, aerobic training. VO2 max, maybe, gang? Okay. Increase in bone density. Very important if you're trying to sell an exercise regime, especially to postmenopausal women. Okay? Weight-bearing exercise is one of the best bullets to counteract what? Osteoporosis. Okay? Improve control of blood glucose and lipids. Okay? The lipids are the fats kind of going around your body. Okay? Improve control of blood glucose. What? Directly related to what? Perhaps mitigating somebody that's pre-diabetic. Maintain or improve lean body mass. Okay? Call it body comp as well. Decrease depression and anxiety levels. Again, we spoke of that earlier. Higher quality of life. I'm here to tell you the higher quality of life is a good thing, and it's only a bad thing if you have one spouse that's getting in shape, looking great, feeling great, becoming more active, and the other spouse is a slug.
Oh my gosh, I have a real world story on this, if everyone wants to know. So I've been training really, I was always been active, but I started training a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago. Anyway, I only do group exercise training except what I do outside of the group, but there was a lady, she and I are really good teammates in kickboxing and the other stuff that we do. We really pushed each other hard and had really good chemistry as teammates. Well, she came to me one day and she said, my husband doesn't want me to team up with you anymore. And so he was exactly the same way. He was not exercising along with her, and felt I can only imagine, but I feel like he probably was insecure. So it was a threat.
It again, and then it can go the other way. One spouse starts doing exceptionally well. The other spouse, hey, I want a part of this too. I don't want to be left in the dark. But again, it can have a good effect or a negative effect on a couple. Hopefully, you got one spouse that's doing well. Hey, train the other spouse too. You know, be creative and be your best agent. You know, but I've seen it go both ways. The one gets in shape, the other one follows suit. The one gets in shape and starts looking really good, and then gets the interests of other parties as well. So again, it can have a good effect or a grading effect. Again, as a personal trainer, you don't want to break up relationships necessarily, of course, but you want to get, if something's going on, probably it's going to come knocking. So what happened to Todd? I've seen it happen many times. It's when a transformation's being made, it can be pretty drastic.
People can lose their minds.
Yeah. Well,
I certainly lost a really awesome workout partner, so that's
Yeah. Well, I had a friend that I was training, and she's going, yeah, X is starting to look really good. I said, well, that's cool. And she goes, well, X is going to the tanning booth and X got her hair cut and this, that, and the other thing. I said, X's marriage is in trouble. Sure enough, she goes, yep, they're getting a divorce, okay? Again, just, it's out there, just, you gotta be cognizant, and if you feel that's happening, take the initiative, say, hey, well, give a free training session or two to her partner. The excitement can be contagious, you know? So again, if that happens, use it to your advantage, not your disadvantage, all right? Enough said there.
Can I go back a little bit to,
Sure.
you said something about improved control of blood
Glucose?
You said something after that, that could help for,
Let's see.
Pre-diabetic.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. If somebody, okay, let me put some myths away. Is everybody that's obese pre-diabetic?
Almost all of them, I would say.
Well, not necessarily.
Not guaranteed.
But it puts a huge strain on a person's pancreas if their ideal body weight, let's say, was 175 pounds, and they put 100 pounds on. That pancreas, through your design, your genetics, was built, I guess, to assimilate somebody at 170 pounds, 75 pounds of weight.
It was engineered.
So,
Was engineered for Y and then given
yeah.
X.
So anyways, being obese doesn't necessarily make a person pre-diabetic, but it has a huge propensity to do so, okay? So, what happens is, specifically weight loss in the form of changing body composition is the most effective way to counteract the pre-diabetic condition. I just said a lot of things. Let's digest that, okay? Changing the body composition, meaning getting more lean mass, less adipose tissue. Because that adipose tissue needs the same amount of nutrition, if not more, than the muscle does. So if we get more lean mass, the demand on the pancreas is less. Okay? And it goes on from there. So usually any kind of weight mitigation is helpful to somebody that's pre-diabetic, but weight mitigation in the form of body composition is much better. Do you see? One's good, body composition change is better. That makes sense?
yeah.
Now, I'll go one step farther. I don't want Makisha to miss this though, but we can reiterate. So, if we're trying to mitigate weight, the best way I know to do it is to create a caloric deficit. Exercise, weight-bearing exercise creates a caloric deficit, also gains lean muscle tissue, and then teaming that with some initially perhaps modest cardiovascular component, you're also creating a caloric deficit there. The two then in turn will influence the weight loss, but more so in the positive. That make sense? Okay, Makisha, she had a question regarding if somebody, just because somebody's obese, does that mean they have a propensity to be pre-diabetic? That was the question.
Are you asking me?
Well,
I don't know.
we're just having
I
a
would
conversation.
assume the chances are higher.
Very much higher. Doesn't necessarily mean it, but the propensity would be higher. So changing the body composition, gaining more lean mass, getting rid of that excess adipose tissue is a good way to help combat a pre-diabetic condition. And I also entered the mindset, if you will, of adding a cardiorespiratory component as well. So we have a two-edged sword for weight mitigation. One, caloric deficit through resistance training, and then also a caloric deficit through some kind of cardiovascular activity. So again, we got SAID, there goes SAID. Okay, neuromuscular physiology. Nerves are made up of neurons, of course, sensory neurons and motor neurons. Okay, motor neurons connect synapses with a muscle at a neuromuscular junction called the motor end plate. The motor unit is made up of one motor neuron, and all of the muscle cells it innervates. Number of muscle cells a motor neuron innervates depends on the precision and actually required of the muscle. Okay? So, another way of saying this, sometimes we have power grips and precision grip, power movements and precision movements. Sometimes the different amount of neurons will be recruited determining on what the task is, all right? Muscle fiber types, we're kind of revisiting some things. Fast twitch, those are our voluntaries. Usually utilize primarily the phosphagen and anaerobic glycolysis. The first two substrates are available, okay? Fast twitch motor units innervate more muscle fibers, allowing greater force production, okay? Slow twitch, okay, well equipped for oxygen delivery. They're at the bottom of that scale that we first saw. Phosphagen system, anaerobic glycolysis, the bottom was the oxidative system. As I said, the marathon runners usually have a higher higher percentage of slow twitch, okay? Well equipped for oxygen delivery, used for low intensity, longer duration activities, okay? Usually more abundant in fatigue resistant muscles, okay? Generally, people with the higher percentage of slow twitch muscles have the more angular appearance.
Well, what do you mean by fatigue-resistant muscle groups, like quads? Or it says posterior, it says.
Back there,
It says
okay,
postural.
postural muscles, okay? So, what are the postural muscles?
Your core?
The core, and also in the back, your multifidus, your rector spinae, and so forth. But they would also, they're going to be everywhere, they're not just there, but usually more abundant in these places. But like I said, I gave the example of the lady that looked like a spider on the overhang of some kind of a rock structure, okay? And then getting onto that with our distribution, okay? Muscle fiber distribution is largely determined by genetics, which we spoke of a few moments ago, okay? Most people have about equal percentage of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. Their development, though, could be radically different. Persons better at low intensity endurance activities may have a larger percentage of slow twitch, which this is becoming obvious. Persons better at high intensity sudden bursts, probably more fast twitch. Intermediate fiber types have a high capacity for both fast and anaerobic and slow aerobic movements and are adaptable based upon the training stimulus. Getting back to Todd's friend with what we call the farmer's strength or old man's strength. But we thought that was probably more due to what? Tendon arrangement and so forth. But it could be this too. Okay.
Is there any way to develop, I mean, obviously there's a way to develop each type of muscle, but is there a way to, I don't know how to say that, I guess.
To get
You
more
can't-
sense.
Expedite or
You can't-
actualize?
How can you engage your muscles to grow certain muscle type? Like, for intermediate type, how would I engage my muscles to grow more intermediate muscle fibers?
That's a damn good
Because
question.
that's obviously what you would want, to
Yeah.
be adaptable.
Generally, people train due to what genetic hand they're offered, okay? So, we've got the angular boys, I'll pick on boys, hard gainers, they go to the gym, they develop a high amount of strength, they don't get big. Okay?
It's always been my difficulty.
Probably,
I can be crazy strong, but I just don't look it.
that's,
It
and you know
annoys the
what?
crap out of me.
And that's what's great about you being an adult, because you know the difference. That's where the allure comes with doing things like anabolic steroids or human growth hormone.
It's
Because-
annoying.
Because the person, and I'm here, I was one of them, okay? Beating myself against the wall. God, I wanted big arms. They're not getting much bigger, maybe an inch or two, you know? You gotta look at your parents if you know who your parents are. If they're not large individuals, let's say if they're mesomorphs, you're never gonna swing the other way. You're probably not gonna swing the other way either, ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorphs. You gotta look at your genetic blueprint. You can modify it, but unless you take drastic action, you're probably not going to deviate it. You can be the best you can be, but you're never gonna be, that's the allure of the magazines and so forth, and why so many people get into the other agents, the anabolic steroids and human growth hormones and all the rest of it.
It's far
Because-
easier for me to cut than I just can't seem to bulk much.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what I'm pushing or what I'm doing, I just get
And
ridiculous
I mean,
definition.
Chris,
but
can you tell me how old you are now?
I'm 30.
Okay. I can only tell you what statistics show and what seemed to happen with me, and it changes for everybody, but you have a biological clock. And until the age of about 41 or 42, I could eat, I could
Anything?
sit down
Oh,
and
yeah.
eat a large pizza, drink a couple beers, and a couple hours later, do it again. I was an eating machine.
And still look fine.
Yes, about age 42, 43, that changed a little bit. That changed a little bit. So where I'm going with this, it can change with age or with conditioning too. So last year, I'm not doing the marathon this year. Last year I did the Bayshore Marathon. I like the preparation. And then also, if you train for a marathon, if you're doing it properly, you probably have one really long run during the week, depending on what you're working up to and whose regime that you're training under. I kind of trained instinctively, but the first time I did it, I did the method called Hal Higdon's marathon method. It's kind of a tried and true one, but its basis is something called undulating periodization, which we'll get into a little bit in our bigger book. But having said that, if you're running 50, 60 miles a week, do you think you're gonna be more efficient with your respiration and so forth? You better believe it. Whether you want it to happen or not, if you're able to haul the mail that long, something's gonna happen in the positive. So, case in point, I wanna get through this chapter, but this is all good conversations. Case in point, I'm gonna teach everybody how to do their target heart range for you or a client. Don't know if we're gonna get to that tonight or not. But having said that, I'm in 15 miles into an 18-mile run. I go into the dockside party store on M22 and hand the clerk, she knew me, a soggy dollar bill so I can get my water, because it's in the middle of winter. If I leave water out, it's gonna freeze, okay? So they had the big Pepsi clock there with the sweep second hand. Check my pulse. Held it for 15 seconds. And determined, this is 15 miles into a run, that my heartbeat was only beating 90 beats per minute.
Wow. How fast were you going?
And my pants were starting to get tight. Okay, my regular pants, not my running stuff, which is loose. What was happening? I wasn't training hard enough, and the specific adaptation to its imposed demand, my heart and lungs are getting better equipped to do what I'm doing, and I'm using less calories. Waistline's getting bigger. Heart's beating slower. Now, runners and scuba divers wear their resting heart rate like a badge of courage. That's like you're a stud or a studette if you got a low heart rate. Well, that's one with the SAID principle. I wasn't training hard enough. Okay, I was being a pretty decent runner, but I found out that doing speed work sucks and I didn't like it. I'm running a marathon to run the marathon, not to be fast. But okay, so I'm lazy in that regard. There, but that's an example of how things can happen. Okay, and I'm going to show, if we don't get to it tonight, we'll start out tomorrow with that, how to do a target heart range properly, not the online craziness, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. All right. Okay, the endocrine system, of course, creates what? Hormones, okay? Hormones